Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the other games that went on, especially in the SEC. Bama absolutely rolled Wisconsin. A&M probably ended Billy Napier's career at Florida, and then Missouri got a big time win over Boston College in the only ranked matchup of the day on Saturday. So big time performances from all those guys, but let's get into in a little bit of an upset watch because there were a number throughout this weekend that either gave us scares or were outright upsets. Now, there were so many upsets that this is what this segment is going to be. We're not going to get into the close calls because, frankly, we don't have time to get into the close calls. There were enough of these big time upsets that we got to get into them to start. And we got to start with this one. I have no earthly idea what happened here, and it was a very tough day for Brandon Walker over there, but the reality is Toledo just went into Starkville and took Mississippi State to the woodshed. It was absolutely insane watching this score continue to rise for Toledo and move absolutely nowhere for Mississippi State. The payout for this game was $1.2 million, so a good day at the office for Toledo, no two ways about that. And there were a number of things to take away from this game. I think the biggest one was Tucker Gleason. He was really, really impressive. A transfer from Georgia Tech that made his way up to Toledo. 23 for 28, 325, 3 touchdowns. Did everything you wanted him to do. Really, really impressive game from him and was in full control of this offense against a defense that looked lost for a vast majority of this game on the Mississippi side of the ball. And then for Mississippi State, I think there's a number of questions. You got to figure out a number of things when it comes to the Mississippi State team. I think the biggest thing is they only had one guy over 50 yards rushing, had 66 total yards rushing. Blake Shapen had 2 turnovers. Everything went wrong, really, in this game for them, and it was one of those things that they should be able to run on Toledo. There's no reality where Mississippi State should not be able to run on Toledo, and if they can't, then they got big time problems coming up in SEC play. But overall, I think there were a number of things to take away from this game. Toledo got after the quarterback Blake Shapen quite a bit in this game. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss in this game. They were all over the place. Really impressive performance from that group, and a lot of questions on the Mississippi State side of things. So it was one of those weekends where you had a lot of people play not so great football. You had a lot of people play really good football, and you have a number of coaches that are asking a number of questions, and Jeff Lebby is probably chief among them. He probably has no earthly idea what happened on Saturday because they are as lost as just about anyone right about now, and it does not get easier. They have a number of games coming up, including going to Texas, including going to Ole Miss at the end of the year. I think they have Alabama. It's a nightmare for Mississippi State, plain simple, and I think this is going to be one of those games. They'll likely play better next week, but this was rough. There's no two ways about that. They got paid 1.2 to come down to Starkville and dominate you and just take you to the woodshed. And now they have WKU before they get into conference play. This is definitely a team to watch. I think that MAC's schedule is becoming just so crazy and so many teams that could make some things happen in that conference that there might just be one that separates themselves, whether that's Miami of Ohio or Toledo or Northern Illinois, who knows. But at the end of the day, the MAC is becoming more and more fun by the day, and I absolutely love to see these upsets early on in the season. I think this is one where if you're Mississippi State, I don't really know how you deal with this one. I got to be honest. I think this is one of those that you got to just flush the tape, keep moving forward, hope that in the offseason you can get some things right and keep this thing moving forward under Jeff Lebby. But man, this one was gross. From start to finish, they got absolutely dominated in pretty much every facet of this game, and I don't know what the locker room talk was afterwards, but I gotta imagine it was a lot of silence. I'll just be totally honest. I don't think that was a very I don't think anyone was even really amped up. I don't think there was much yelling. I don't think there was much aggression. I think it was just what just happened more than anything else. But Mississippi State still has plenty in front of them. Obviously, this is the first year in hopefully, a very long time for Jeff Lebby to figure things out over there in Starkville. But man, this one's tough. And you were definitely the story of the weekend because you didn't take care of business. But at the end of the day, very impressive performance from Toledo. They keep moving forward, feel like a team that could maybe make some things happen in that CFP race. And then Mississippi State, just strap in. Just buckle down for the rest of the season. It's going to be ugly. Hopefully on the other side you can figure some things out. But Let's get into this Georgia State game. This was insane. If you did not see the finish of this game, go check it out right about now. If you started about 2 minutes left, you'll get everything you need to know about this game because this was absolutely wild. Vandy got the ball back with about 2 minutes left, went down the field and scored in about 45 seconds. It looked like Georgia State was pretty much done. It looked like Vandy was able to close this thing out and get a win in a very scary circumstance. And then come the Panthers. They came right back down the field, and in very short amount of time, they threw a touchdown. Christian Velo played just incredibly well throughout this game under the circumstances, and that ball in the final touchdown with 15 seconds left, one of the prettiest balls in the entire weekend. Just absolutely incredible and shows you how important this guy is to this team. Coming over from Pitt, just a huge pickup in the portal there. And he played a really solid game. 26 for 41, 269 total, 4 touchdowns. Did really, really good stuff all over the place this weekend. And was another group of 5 quarterback that just caused a lot of problems for this team, particularly on the offensive line. There were a number of plays where Georgia State was just essentially able to blow it up. Vandy had 110 rushing yards, 3.2 yards per carry, kept Diego Pavia out of it for a lot of this game, which obviously plays a huge role in this, but Georgia State did a great job of responding in this game. When Vandy got within 2 at halftime, Georgia State came out with a field goal and a touchdown to extend the lead back to 12. And then Vandy cut it right back down to 5 after an INT. Georgia State came right back down and put it up to 12. So they did everything that you needed to do. And then obviously the final drive was the biggest response of the day. But really impressive stuff from this team where it felt like there were probably 5-6 moments in this game where it could have been like, okay, Vandy's going to pull away. They're going to be able to handle this one and it won't be a story at the end of the day. And then Georgia State just came right back and responded. It was really, really impressive. Kind of love to see it, being an Atlanta kid, love to see the team in my home city get something done here. But really impressive win. First time that an SEC team has gone down to play Georgia State in Atlanta. Can't imagine too many of them will be back. Let's just leave it at that right now. But a really good win for this team. Definitely gets them off on the right track. And I don't know if it'll be a remarkable season for Georgia State by any means, but still a very fun win and one that those kids can remember for quite some time. A really awesome game and one of the best finishes of the entire weekend. But let's get into this one because I don't even know what to say anymore. I got to be totally honest with you. I am at a loss for words for this Florida State team. There are so many different things that you saw in week 1 that you knew had to be fixed, that had to be fixed in very, very concrete ways that can be fixed. None of them have been fixed. And a lot of it has to do with the players. I'm not saying the coaches have done, terrible things or they're necessarily doing anything wrong. I think there is a wild miscommunication of what's happening in practice and what's happening on this field because obviously Mike Norvell knows what his team is at this point. He knows exactly who he has on the field. It's very clear that he is seeing something on the practice field that is not translating to the gameplay, and as long as that happens, they are not going to win games because you're not going to have a good game plan going in because you saw something one day on Thursday that you see something totally different on Saturday. So it's all over the place in Florida State, and I think you looked at this team after last week and you said maybe they can make a bowl game. Maybe they'll be able to get to 6 wins. Now 3 wins is a real possibility. I don't know what this team is. I genuinely don't know if they have many redeemable qualities. I think the defense is starting to play better, starting to play with a little bit more energy and passion, but when you have an offense like this, you're not going to be able to win games. There's no reality where Florida State cannot push the ball downfield and they can't run the ball. There's no reality where they're going to be able to win. That's the plain truth, and I think it's one of those things that you look at this Florida State team, there are so many things that should be going better. There are so many things that just should be better just from a sheer talent perspective. From a sheer you have Patrick Payton and they don't. You have Shaheem Brown and they don't. That should make a difference, and it just doesn't. It doesn't make any bit of difference, and frankly, Memphis did not play a clean game. Memphis probably played C+ football, maybe B- football in this game, and they still were able to handle this game pretty much from start to finish. So, I don't know. Florida State is as broken as can be right now, and I am as confused as pretty much anyone about how they got here, because this was a team coming in that had so much talent, that had so many things going in the right direction, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and it's just looked like a entirely different team. If I flipped the jerseys and we just had gray jerseys on both these teams, you would firmly think the one in the Memphis team was the Power 5 team. You would think that Florida State was the Group of 5 team, and it wouldn't have been anywhere close. It was a wild game, and it was one of those that I don't know what Florida State does from here. I think when you look at this, there's obviously things that can be fixed, and they will be fixed, but they kind of can't be fixed until the end of the season. You kind of just have to strap in, hope that everything goes right the rest of the season, and then hopefully you can pull in a good recruiting class, get some more portal guys in there. But the reality is just getting a portal class in is not going to fix the problems that they have. They have to be able to recruit better on the in the recruiting world. They have to be able to just get more involved in high school recruiting and not lean so much on the portal, because it's just not going to work. It's not going to work on a consistent basis the way that they want to. So Florida State has a ton of things to figure out, and I think that Billy Napier hot seat, I'm not going to necessarily peddle in that too much. I think there are a lot of people kind of overreacting to that. I would be shocked if he was fired this year in pretty much any circumstance, but it doesn't change that there are a lot of things that need to get fixed, and they don't have too much time to fix them. But moving on to the final one here, UNLV was able to get a big-time win on Friday. This was an ugly game, for sure. This was a very sloppy game pretty much from start to finish, but UNLV gets their second win over a Big 12 opponent this year. Really impressive stuff, and the UNLV offense was a little bit all over the place. They made a number of good plays, but they definitely left quite a bit on the table. And then on the other side, if Jalen Daniels is not running the ball, if they don't have him as a threat running the ball, this is not a very good offense. He went 12 for 24, 153, and 2 interceptions through the air. If he's going to be able to stay in the pocket, if you can keep him there, you're going to have a lot of success against this team, because they don't have a lot of responses for that, especially in the pass game. So it was one of those games that you felt like Jalen Daniels might just be able to open things up, might be able to make some things happen, but if he wasn't running the ball, there was just about nothing to be had in this game. And then from the UNLV perspective, Matthew Sluka was really special in this game. He was a ton of fun to watch throughout this one, and cannot wait to see what he can do the rest of the season. He does need to figure out some of the just figure out not going into certain situations. He threw a number of balls that were downright crazy to throw. I'll just be totally honest with you. There were a number of plays in this game where you just held your breath as that ball was in the air. So got to figure that out. Definitely have to get more in the pass game, but he was a big time factor with his legs. As we talked about last week, that had to be the case if they were going to win this one. He was all over the place. Played really good football, and is one of those guys that is going to cause problems for you. Really impressive player, and I think overall the biggest takeaway more than anything else was UNLV executed exactly how they needed to when they needed to. The final drive was an absolute thing of beauty. 18 plays, 75 yards, 9.5 minutes off the clock, and it finished with a game-winning touchdown. That is about as good as you can possibly draw it up if you're UNLV, especially against a team like Kansas that is so explosive on the offensive side of the ball. But as of right now, UNLV is your group of 5 rep. I don't think there's any argument otherwise. Matthew Sluka was incredible. 19 carries, 124 yards, a touchdown on the ground. The dude did, or a touchdown passing, apologies. None on the ground, but very impressive performance from him. And then on the other side, Jalen Daniels just wasn't good enough. He needs to figure out a way to get more consistent play, at least in the passing game, if they're going to do much of anything in the Big 12, because right now this looks like a very different team than what I thought I was going to see early on in the season. But overall, I think the biggest thing I took away from this game was UNLV is a real contender, and they didn't even play all that clean of football throughout a lot of this game, but able to get it done, move on to the Mountain West, have plenty of stuff to figure out, and big-time matchups coming down the road. But overall, this is going to be a really fun team to watch. They have Syracuse in 3 weeks here, I believe, and that's definitely one to watch. If they get that win, then I'm fully throwing myself behind the Running Rebels, and I'm buying in and trying to do everything I can to peddle the propaganda machine to get them in. I can promise you that. But it was a really fun weekend, a number of upsets that I don't know if anyone saw coming. I promise you, I did not preview Toledo, Mississippi State. I touched on Georgia State Vandy, but didn't necessarily preview too much. So I told you last week there were going to be a couple of games that went under the radar that none of us really saw going in that were going to be crazy, and we got plenty of them this past weekend. But let's take our final break here, and when we come back, we just got to do a little bit of a whip around. A number of things happened this past weekend that I got to get on y'all's radar, particularly an injury in that Texas quarterback room that maybe isn't that big of a deal. But we'll get into that right after this, so stick with us.